Hello, this is Michael Wojcik with the Rochester City Council update for December 7th, 2015. Long meeting, late night, try and be relatively quick. 5 items for you. We did have a small addition to the Rochester Energy Plan, which, on a multi-million dollar planning effort, you wouldn't think a $9,000 adjustment would be too much, but what was interesting here is that Councilmember Hickey pulled it and was opposed to the language talking about greenhouse gases. I subsequently brought up in my comments that the Rochester Energy Commission was created to address both energy use and greenhouse gases, and one of the things they were tasked with doing is documenting it, and quite frankly, we are a city of scientists. I am not a client denier. Our city is not dominated by client deniers, and I think it was smart to go forward, and ultimately we did approve it with a 6-1 vote, of course with the mayor, strong support as well. We had some work brought forward on the city owner contracts. That's where private developers build public infrastructure and then we accept it later. The problem has been we have blown millions of dollars fixing shoddy infrastructure that was built for us. So we put together a quality control process in place, and I was the one that initiated this process several months ago. But when I initiated it, I said I want a quality control process and I want it done without taxpayer expense. And we got a good quality control process, but then they also put a $60,000 a year charge on the city council to pay for it. I object to that. I don't believe that we should have to pay the beneficiaries of this development to ensure that we get quality infrastructure. I think that should just be an expectation. But the majority of the council overruled myself and Mr. Campion, so the taxpayers will in fact be paying that $60,000 a year. We did have our tax hearings. Most of the comments were from small businesses who really got jacked hard this year, and ultimately what's causing their taxes to go up is not anything that we have control over. I think when everything was said and done, staff told us that locally it was a 3.4% increase when you spread it over all of our existing and new properties. But when you adjust for differences in valuations, some of the downtown businesses really got whacked hard not because we were increasing taxes so much, but because their property values just went up, and that's what their taxes are based on. We have no control over property values. We have no control over the apportionment of where these funds are going. Ultimately, it seems like downtown, if you look at all the metrics, we're doing well. I mean, we've got good wage growth, we've got good occupancy, we've got good unemployment rate. So if the business community is in tatters, I mean, we're not seeing it in the data yet, but we certainly don't want to get to that point where we are seeing it either. I'm sensitive to what they're saying, and in fact, I anticipated the question, so before the meeting I put out a list of 7 things businesses can do, and frankly some of those things are flying in the face of what the business community is doing right now. For example, the business community have been advocates for sprawl and poor infrastructure decisions. They need to knock that off. Ultimately, most of the things that are going to affect these businesses are set at the state. For example, LGA. If we could go back to the pre-Tim Pawlenty LGA massacre, that would basically reduce property taxes on these businesses 18% tomorrow. But I am doubtful of whether or not that's going to get done or not. I asked for suggestions in terms of what the city could do to on the spending side to adjust property taxes, and most of the things that were suggested had nothing to do with city property taxes. A couple of them that did. Don't give the city council dinner once a month. I could really care less about that if it makes you feel better, but it's a de minimis amount of money. And cut parks. I'm not planning on cutting parks anytime soon. Maybe 4 other council members will disagree with that. In the big picture, since 2000, first year I was in Rochester, also a nice even number. The staffing per capita is down 9.5%. When you adjust for inflation and for population growth, per capita we're paying about $86 or $88 a month more than we were in 2000. A year, $86 or $88 a year more in property taxes than we were. And if you look at where those increases are going, like 65 or 66 of that is public safety. I mean, that's basically all there is. There hasn't been extension of services or anything. It's just we're just paying for the things that we have, and we've had some increase in public safety. It's but your taxes are not necessarily reflective of what's going on in the city, and inflation's a real thing that we have to deal with. We did have the Bloom extension before us, and we can't entertain other other proposals while we're in the exclusive negotiating period. We have to determine whether or not we're going to extend it with Bloom. Ultimately, they need an extension because they needed a DMC process to be in place, and we just got it in place now, so they were kind of stuck. There's some discussion of whether or not we're going to extend it, and ultimately we want to hear where they are at in the process. But they are proposing some things. I was curious myself where they were, so I took the time and I met with Bloom, and they're talking about ownership condos in downtown, which would be huge. I begged other developers to do it, and nobody has been willing to do it. Bloom is the first one that's come forward. Because they have the Associated Bank building, they have the ability to transform that entire facade as it faces 2nd Street. They're the only company that can do that. And probably the most important, they have the capital to see this through and get it done. And I'm not necessarily sure other groups will do it. I have to check with the city attorney because there was one other group that was talking about a proposal for the site. But the reality is that we're not supposed to entertain other options while the current exclusive negotiating phase. I don't believe that applies to individual council members, but rather the council as a whole. But assuming I can, I'm going to go and hear what these other folks have to say, hear what they're proposing, and most importantly, find out where their financing is and make sure their financing is solid. Because even if we open this up to more competition, I don't want to waste staff times on anyone who doesn't have solid financing backing their project. This is going to be $250 million to $500 million project would be my guess. And, I don't want to get into a situation where we're waiting years to get a project going. It's frustrating when that happens. And we need to make sure that this is actually going to get developed, quite frankly, because we could use some more property taxpayers in the downtown. Lastly, the Conley Mass Building, which is Words Player Theater, used to be a beautiful historic building. We have a small TIF district that we set up there to help get a business going there and really refurbish that building back to its past splendor. Really excited to see that going. I've opposed a number of TIF districts before because I don't think they were for the public benefit. This, I think, is really outstanding way to preserve some historic buildings, and it's my goal to really preserve those buildings in Rochester's historic district, whether it be Broadway or First Avenue or 3rd or 4th Streets. There's some really special buildings there that I think we do need to seek to protect, and this is a relatively inexpensive way for the city to do that. So that's what went on. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.